Hi, my name is Heather Howard, and I am the Executive Director of the Conception Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for tuning into this replay of our Chamber Chats session that took place on October 8th at 10 a.m. We had 17 business owners and professionals join us live on Zoom for this session. We were joined by Carole Spicer, who was our facilitator for this event, and our guest speaker was Sherry Somerville, the CEO of the Atlantic Chamber of Commerce. This session is part one in a series of three Chamber Chats networking sessions. These sessions begin with a guest speaker and give the participants an opportunity to discuss the topics and learn a little bit more about each other while networking in the digital space. So this particular session was about just that, networking in the digital space. So Sherry shared a presentation that was extremely valuable. So I did want to have this replay available. So what you'll see is the replay of Sherry's presentation plus a little bit of the conversation that was happening. There was a lot of conversation happening in the chat box. So enjoy the replay, and if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, feel free to add your comments as you go through this video. We'd love to hear that you're watching the replay and you're engaging with the polls that we had and the different questions that we asked throughout. We'd love to hear your experience as well. And hopefully, if you really like this session and enjoyed watching the replay, you will join us on our next session. And you can find out when our next session is, and you can register at cbachamber.com/events, and you'll see everything that we are putting out there for the next couple of months. So enjoy this, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So as Heather mentioned, my name is Carole Spicer, and I'm the owner of Spicer Facilitation and Learning, and I'm located on the west coast of the province in Pasadena. And I'm very, very, very happy to be here with you this morning to take you through the conversation with Sherry. Looking forward to hearing what she has to say. So a couple logistic things I'm going to run you through. Heather mentioned the closed captioning, but if you hover your mouse at the bottom of your screen, you'll see participants, chat, and reactions as well. If you click on participants, it'll open up a side panel, and you have an opportunity there to raise your hand. If we ask you a question, we might ask you to give us a yes, no. If we're going too slow or too fast, you can give us some feedback there as well. Opening up the chat, I'm going to ask everyone to do that now, and this is for mostly Sherry's benefit as well as mine, to give us an idea of who's here. So if you could just say a good morning, let us know who you're with and maybe what community you're joining us from. And then that will give us an idea of where our reach is, and that may tie into something we're going to talk about a little bit later. And then closed captioning, if you hit on that, you can show the subtitles or hide them, whichever you choose if you wish to see that feature. And then on the reactions, you can give us a thumbs up once in a while if that's something you're moved to do. So just a couple logistic things there. And again, just to make sure you sort of find the chat, if you get an opportunity, pop over in chat and say hello and let us know where you are. So I'm going to kick things off with just take a moment to do a land acknowledgement. So I'm coming from you, as I mentioned, from Pasadena, and I'm on the unceded territory of the Beothuk, and I ask that you just take a moment to reflect on the territory that you may be joining us from and recognizing those that came before us. So today we're talking about digital networking. So Sherry, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can share your screen if you wish and take us through what you've got to say.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Carole. And good morning, everybody. As you can tell from the earlier conversation, I'm shy. This obviously comes very hard for me. But I am glad to be here today. And sorry. Share screen. If the computer works as fast as I do. Share. Excellent. Can we all see my screen now? Oops. Don't know why that started there. There we
Yeah,
go.
it's all good.
All right, pretty title page. And I call this disconnected connectedness. And the reason is because as of March 13th or March 16th, right around that time, the week before I had been in PEI, the week before that in Bridgewater and Halifax, and then I've not left home since. So it's been, we've all experienced it, all been, locked down in home. And for us, a big part of what the chambers do is all about connecting. It is one of the primary things that we do, not just for our business members, but us as chambers. We have 94 chambers in Atlantic Canada, and on an average of, 2 to 3 staff in each chamber. Some chambers are just run by a board of directors. And then we have other teams that are, about 10 big. So it spans the gamut in terms of a chamber size. And so the importance of being able to connect with your colleagues, I mean, that's critical, especially if you're in a chamber by yourself. Now, interestingly enough, our team at the Atlantic Chamber is virtual and has been for years. So people would ask me, oh my God, what do you think of working from home? You're working from home now. And I went, well, we only just really worked more hours when this happened. So my team is in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick. And so we work daily with each other virtually. So when this all happened, it was very interesting to me. And I'm going to start with just a little bit of networking and why it's important, or how it's traditionally done, or why people dislike it, and then move into some tips for, I see I've got some chambers on here and some businesses on here. So there's a little bit of both, for some recommendations for chambers and some recommendations for people. All right. Sorry, I've got you guys down in front of my slides. So, how many people think networking is the best thing ever? It's so much fun. You love to do it. Said, and for this, I went, networking is the best. My absolute fave, said no one ever. Most people think networking is more stressful than it is fun. They feel like they're being fake. They're not having real conversations. How many people have ever entered a room? I've done it, where you stand there, you look around, you don't see a soul that you know, and you grab yourself a beverage and you don't know where to go from there. And it can feel very isolating. You don't know what to say, and you really just don't know how to meet anybody or make a connection. That's generally what it feels like for most people. And even if you think of yourself as, hey, I'm great, I'm social, I am a network, I don't think there's a time, there's a time when you walk into a room and that you don't know people, and it can be awkward and confusing. So, and the same thing happens virtually. You get on, and some people aren't comfortable with the camera. I love to say that I've got a great face for radio, so I'm not afraid of the camera anymore, but you get used to that after a while. But my recommendations would be, whether we get to network in person again or virtually, the key is to prepare. You always feel more comfortable in situations that you are prepared for. So for virtual, I would say, if you're going to go to an event, let people know online that you're going to an event. Help the organizers publicize it. Get people to go. You might know a few people, and that always makes it comfortable when you go to an event. I would say establish your goals for what you want to achieve at a network event. For some people, it's connecting with three new people, or trading emails with 2 attendees. But for you, figure out what it is you want to achieve from your networking event. I have heard recommendations on, don't just come away with 60 odd business cards. Really, networking is about creating relationships with people, creating connections. And when you just grab a business card, you're not doing that. You want to have a conversation with somebody. So I would generally suggest keep your numbers low. And that's the same thing when you're on virtual, because on virtual you have, as Carole pointed out, you've got the chat function, and you can have group chats and private chats going on in the background as you're listening to content, or somebody can ask a question that you might think is very, very interesting, and you can ask them a question about their question and get a conversation going. There's things like that. Always have, and this is whether you've got your feet on the street or you're on camera, if somebody asks you about who you are and what you do, have your 30-second or 60-second elevator pitch ready. Know who you are, what you do, and where you do it, and be able to tell them in 30 seconds. And prepare 2 or 3 questions that you can ask people to get to know them, their profession or their business. That always helps you. And it doesn't have to feel fake or forced. You know, if you have 2 or 3 and then somebody says something that tweaks your interest, you can ask them about that. But at least if you have 2 or 3 questions that, you know, you're usually interested in people, like what would you typically ask people about if you were meeting somebody new? Engage in real-time messaging, like I said, during presentations. Always be positive. Try to avoid the negative, and get their email and follow up with them. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Establish that connection, or on Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is that they use to conduct their business, because it will be different for everybody. I will say this, everybody has their favorites. So for me, LinkedIn is my favorite place because I can go and read content. I'm not a big Twitter user, probably because I talk too much and can't keep anything under 140 characters. But, and Twitter I go to for my news. That's where I follow my reporters. And Facebook I keep for family and friends. So those are the kind of things to learn about people, and what their favorite mechanism to connect is also important. In talking to a few people before I did this, we were talking about an elevator pitch, and I realized that most people have a trouble developing an elevator pitch, or don't know what it is, or it's way too long. So an elevator pitch, or the perfect pitch, is really short, snappy, and easy to grab attention. You don't want to go into a long soliloquy and try to sell somebody something. It's never nice to be approached with that kind of thing when you hear, you know, meet somebody for the first time and they talk as much as, oh, maybe I do. But you try to keep it short. Like I said, 30 seconds, and don't try to rush through it. It's a conversational pace. You want to try to be natural. You know, your goal is to earn a second conversation. It's not to convince anybody of anything. Or like if you were in an elevator and you got an executive's time, you just want that second meeting. You don't want them to buy the product. You got to build that relationship. So who are you? What do you or does your company do? What's your value proposition? Something to grab their attention, to keep them go, oh, hey, what's that? And then make sure you read and edit your pitch. So for example, I've put one down here, and it's kind of, after a while, when you get saying them often enough, I do it quite often. So hi there, my name is Sherry. I'm from the Atlantic Chamber of Commerce. I'm their CEO. We're a member-driven association that's got 94 chambers and 16,000 businesses across Atlantic Canada. And the primary thing that we do is advocacy. We basically are trying to make conditions better for business. Something like Royal Internet, that's something we've been advocating for lately. So how's your internet? You know, just a quick conversational. I stumbled a little bit, but I'm only half a coffee in this morning. So. But something interesting like that, you know, and if you finish with a question that's related to what you do somehow, that gets a conversation going. But if you just talk at a person and don't leave them with anything to follow through on, then the conversation is going to be very short and choppy. And the same thing works when you're typing online and in text, you know. It always is a good offer a little bit of information, follow up with a question. Help people along to keep the conversation going. Again, you have to recognize not everybody is good at it. Not everybody likes to engage or talk. Some people are very shy. Some people are scared. So if you're not, help them along. Get that conversation going. Some people are great in groups. Some people are one-on-one. For those of you that are with the chambers or planning a networking event, it's equally as important for you to have a solid plan going into it. For example, Carole started off perfectly this morning with here's the housekeeping items. Hey, everybody, put your comments in the chat, get people going. She's helping people along to try to engage with each other. And for a lot of us right now, we're just getting used to this whole online virtual network. And it gets more comfortable as you go along. But for those of you planning things, just make sure that everybody's comfortable from the beginning. Icebreakers can work in a digital world as well. Prepare some questions beforehand in case there's any awkward lulls. A host should control who speaks and when. The thing with virtual that you don't get in traditional networking is people just don't know when to speak. And if you think about it like a conference call, you're not getting the social cues from people. You can't necessarily hear or see or what have you. So it's a little bit more difficult because we are human. We do, whether not knowingly or not, take social cues from people, and we watch and get cues from them on, you know, when to speak or when they're done speaking. Have you ever been on a conference call and you thought somebody was done and then you start talking? Awkward. You know, it's not fun. Anyways, and then set out expectations as a host. I would recommend keeping groups small and coordinating commonalities. That way you naturally give people something to talk about. And if the group is small, you know, big groups, it's easy to kind of sit back and not participate. Smaller groups, people will participate. And like I said, if you grab a group of entrepreneurs or tech people, like from the tech sector or from the hospitality sector, they'll naturally have common interests and be able to speak with each other. And particularly, one of the things that we're trying to do is get, you know, you think about Atlantic Canada, we're in our Atlantic bubble now, creating those events where multi-sector can come in and meet each other so they can facilitate business connections and partnerships and whatnot. That really becomes an important area where helping facilitate is very important, because there might not be those natural commonalities that people would gravitate to and talk about. And moderators, again, it's very important. You could get somebody like me that talks. They love the sound of their own voice. They want to get up in front of the mic. They just want to have a soliloquy. And so moderators are great for controlling and making sure that, you know, you don't get any dominators or grandstanders or what have you. So to make sure that people get equal time. So that's also very, very important. The one thing I would say, it really is about, like anything else, practice makes perfect, or makes it easier. Because it does. The more you do it, it gets easier. Get into this experience or spirit of it. If you think positively, you know, if you go in thinking, oh, this is going to be awful, chances are you're going to have an awful time. You won't meet anybody. You won't achieve your goals that you set up prior to. Ask questions and listen. They say it's often better to listen more than you talk. I'm still working on that one. And then make a follow-up contact. It's interesting. I've had this happen. I was Googling this the other day. Etiquette for, you know, social media, because I seem to be getting a lot of these connections on LinkedIn, and where I'm with the chamber, it's a business network. I always accept connections, but within 3 seconds of making that connection of somebody that I don't necessarily know, I don't get a question or anything like that. I get a boom, product sale. And I find that the most annoying thing. I got one last night and I was just like, yeah, it's a business in Atlantic Canada. You want to help them out, but so I'm trying to find posts on etiquette around, you know, how to approach people. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I'm on this session. So, you know, nobody likes to be hit right up front with a sales pitch. Build a connection, get to know the people before you do that. Find out a little bit about them. I've worked in communications for 25 years, and the key premise behind everything that we do in communications is know your audience. Try to figure out from your audience who they are, what they do, what they want, and that will give you the cues that you need to be able to approach people, to talk to people, the messages that you want to deliver with people. So it's just about simple communications. And whether you're typing in at the keyboard, whether you're talking, you know, this way, or whether you're emailing, those same principles apply. So those were just my quick experiences. We've turned to the virtual world for our meetings. I'm not sure if I'll ever get to leave my house ever again, but our chambers have actually, with this virtual world now, or virtual meetings that we have, we're able to meet quicker more efficiently, cover issues very quickly and efficiently, and develop positions for our advocacy very well. So, you know, it's very productive. So for right now, and the chambers, I'm finding the staff is getting very, very good with you know, speaking up and having fun with it. So with that, Carole, I will hand it back over to you.
Excellent.
I don't know if everybody likes my Kevin McAllister. I might be showing my age.
Excellent, Sherry. Thank you. I'm you're certainly speaking to my heart, because, as I say, I get paid to talk for a living. So, you know, I'm a talker as well, which is probably why I enjoy this thing. But it's interesting because there's a couple quick questions I'd actually like to throw, and I'm going to draw on Heather to do a couple quick polls from us for us. So the first one is your first slide was, I love networking, you know, says no one ever, but I'm kind of curious about that. So if Heather, if you could put up a poll, just a yes, no, you know, do you enjoy going to network? We're gonna kind of play with polls here this morning and see if we can get a couple of responses.
You know, it's interesting when we see the results, Carole, is
Mm-hmm.
if they say they love it versus if they don't, is it based on, and this could be just because I'm in school again and we're researching stuff, but is it because they have experience with it or no experience?
Okay, so when we get the results, I'll ask you, Sherry, to delve into that a little bit. So you should have seen it come up on screen. You can just click your yes, no, and then click submit.
Now we know who's paying attention and who's not.
Exactly. Facilitator trick 101.
Yeah. I got 14 responses here now. So, okay, 15. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to close it out, okay?
Okay.
Okay, 15 out of 17. Share results.
There you go, Sherry.
Half and half.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so of those who said they enjoy networking, do you have a lot of experience with it and feel you're comfortable because you're just used to doing it?
Do you want me to ask that?
Sure, or they can type it into the chat. And
okay. Yeah, actually, yeah. Why don't they just type it in the chat, because it would take me too long.
Yeah, because not everyone answered yes. So I'll just jump in on that first, Sherry, and kind of get the conversation going. My family makes fun of me, and you drink coffee, but man, you go for coffee. So I think it's, you know, I think it's again sort of what people say. It's a bit of a necessary thing to put yourself out there, and it does get easier when you go for coffee. You know, that's my comment.
Well,
we have some comments there in the chat.
Yeah,
box
Jamie
as well.
was just saying it depends on the location.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it depends. I would say golf, Jamie, but my score is bad. So I spend more times off the green in the woods looking for my silly little ball than anything else. But trade shows are, yeah, that's the dreaded trade show. Yeah. That's what feels fake, our trade shows. My first job in my career, I was working and doing trade shows, and yeah.
So interesting. So very situational is what seems to be a theme out of the comments there. Yeah. And I think too, we're getting a different perspective. I think for those of you working with a chamber, you know, as Sherry just mentioned, that's sort of your role, is advocacy and connecting, and you're probably working for the chamber for that reason. I think for the business owners, you know, we run a business, we know how to run our business, we know our product, but maybe this is the part we weren't comfortable with or we weren't prepared for necessarily, right? So there might be a bit of a different perspective.
And you reminded me of something that I didn't put in my slides. I probably didn't say either. If you don't like it, if you feel awkward about it, this is where your chamber can come in very handy. Go to the organizer, go to your chamber director or staff and say, this is what I'm doing. I'd like to meet these three individuals in these three industries, like, because you've got your goals, you know who you want to meet, and say, can you help me? Is there anybody in the room that does that? and introduce us. And that can rely on your chamber staff too, because as good hosts with the most, they can help do that for you and make it a little less uncomfortable. Because I've done it. I've gone to, especially when I first moved home here, and I'm in St. John, New Brunswick. I hadn't been home in 20 years. I didn't know anybody. I might have grown up here, but I would go to meetings with government folks and stuff, and I'd be standing there. First thing I would do is make sure you've got a beverage in her hand and something to eat, because it's comfort, right? You want to, most of us can't stand still with nothing in our hands, just looking around a room. Mm-hmm. It's also awkward as a woman. I had an experience last year. I went to a roundtable event and I walked in, and I might have been one of 5 women walking into that event. And that can be uncomfortable too. And equally so, I suspect, for men walking into an event full of women and stuff. So rely on your hosts. They might be busy setting up and organizing, but hosts, remember, part of your job is to facilitate the networking as well. Just like Carole is online here.
Sherry, on that note, actually, I've done that numerous times as well through email for members. Like if we get a new chamber member, I usually say, pop on over to the directory, have a look. If there's anyone there, let me know, and I will do a full-on introduction to connect you by email, especially now in this time. Make that email connection and just get talking.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had a thought, but then I saw Jennifer's email or comment about speed networking. Yeah, I recently did one of those with the Atlantic Business Magazine for the top 50 CEO awards. And it was cool because you've got a group, because in Zoom you can do breakout rooms, and there was a group of 9 people, and you quickly went around and you did your elevator pitch. The thing that I would have added to that is a little bit more time on the backside of it for the 9 people to chit chat with each other. But it was a close group. I don't know about the one-on-ones. I haven't done anything quite like that. It's even doing a poll in Zoom. One day I'm going to learn that.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and ask Toby if the event you went to, was it online or in person, the speed networking? In person, okay. But you did one online, Sherry.
Yes, yeah. But it was it was small groups.
Right. Yeah. I was in a workshop, and we did something fairly similar, but more on a workshop slant. So we were put in breakouts for, I think it was 3 minutes, and we had to answer a question and discuss, and then move on. And then all of a sudden, randomly, we just got sent to another breakout. So
that's like a time work. They do that in class some nights, and you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, zoop, going, oh my God, I just crossed over into a time zone or something. It's very Star Trek-y.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if we can get Heather up to speed on how to move people around quickly, that'd be something that would be interesting to do.
I'm actually going to throw up a little poll on that, so you can keep chatting. I'm going to throw up a speed networking poll, see where the interest is.
Excellent. So one of the things when Heather and I were chatting about this session, and we started talking about the digital piece, right? Networking in the digital, and Sherry's given some great tips on, how you can actually translate the in-person stuff online. But one of the things I know that I've had a conversation with a previous group is around digital fatigue. And Heather, when you finish that poll, I'm going to ask you to throw up one on digital fatigue, around if people are feeling that, yes, no, or if they have any comments on that, because I think it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about that. I'll just let you get your first poll up there that you're doing. So while Heather's doing that, the other thing that I'm finding, and Sherry, you talked about your team is remote anyway, your individuals, your staff members, but do you find you're now reaching people that you may not have reached because you're no longer traveling to them?
Yep, definitely. So when I took this job 3 years ago, I sat down and with our board that had hired me, and I said, well, we got 94 chambers, and I'm going to get out to meet each one of them. And yeah, that's a lot of driving, a lot of kilometers on the car. And I'm proud to say that I did get to 75 out of the 94 within that first year. It was an ambitious goal. But this, and what's really cool is that my chambers that don't necessarily have staff, and I was watching this too, I'd have conversations. We started doing an annual call. Well, we've always done an annual call with our chambers, but the more I talked to people, it was, well, we volunteer, we don't have staff. I work a day job. I can't necessarily hop in the car, travel 2 hours to attend a 4-hour meeting and then drive back. I lose a day of work. And that's when I started saying, okay, we've got to try to get people online to make it easier for those chambers that can't do it to get into person. And so COVID accelerated that, which was really cool. It was something we were trying to do. I was trying to get our board to use Zoom, and they would gravitate towards telephone calls. But on telephone calls, it was like pulling teeth to try to get people to talk. Now that people are getting used to Zoom or whatever, whatever one they're using, it's starting to come along. People are engaging. They want to see each other's faces and stuff. I will say this, I am hearing too from chambers though, they're starting to hold, they figured out how to hold the in-person events as well. And people really are craving to be in front of people. There is oh my gosh, it's good to see you, even if you are 6 feet away from me, just to be out and about, because we're human, we're social creatures just by nature. So what I think this has really done is given us a way to do a hybrid and increase that way. And not just from a chamber networking for businesses, but also from a productivity and efficiency for us as chambers. And that's really important when you think about it, because we serve as the voice of business. So knowing what your insights or point of view is from a business perspective are very, very important. And to be able to come together as a group and go, okay, rural internet, is that an issue for you? Is that an issue for you? Okay, what are you hearing from your members? And to do that quickly, it's invaluable, actually. Especially in the time of COVID, because I was getting calls from Minister Jolie on a Sunday. Like, we need to know, what are you hearing? What are your businesses? And typically we'd have to survey them. Not anymore. This has allowed us to do things much more quickly, which helps our businesses deliver the services or get the support that they need quicker. Sorry, that was a sales pitch.
That's quite all right. Excellent. So I think, Heather, you've got an overwhelming response that people would love an online speed networking event. So that's pretty cool.
I'm going to put up the next one there now. I figured out how to change the poll. It's much easier than it appeared to be. So here's the next one.
All right. So this is something that, maybe we know the answer, but again, we'll just ask you to answer. Are you experiencing digital fatigue?
I was at one point, but now I feel like the in-person balance of being able to be in person now it's balancing it out for me. So that's just my experience.
I feel like it was like a wave where it was all encompassing in March and April when COVID hit, and then it just kind of dropped, and now it's kind of functioning better than it was before.
I'd have to agree with that one, because there were from March till about end of June, it literally was all day, every day, meeting after meeting, virtually here in front of the computer. So it seems okay now.
And I think you're right. I think we have an opportunity. We've been able to get out. We've been able to maybe connect in a restaurant with someone, maybe not the same volume, but there's that little bit of balance. I think you're right there, Margot, as well. The interesting thing that I wanted to mention here, and the poll results are up there, or about, again, half and half, is psychiatrists that have actually named that digital fatigue is a thing. And what we're experiencing is something called continuous partial attention, which is different than multitasking. It's that our attention is being drawn. So I call this the Brady Bunch view, right? If you've got your speaker view where you're getting all of us here on, on the Brady Bunch view, we're still trying to look for cues. We don't have that in person, as Sherry talked about the body language, but we're still watching all of these faces for those of you that have your cameras on. And that almost sometimes becomes this prolonged eye contact, and it's a bit intimate, you know, that we're not used to. We're not used to kind of staring just at people's eyes all day long. And so there's, you know, it kind of gets a little awkward, a little uncomfortable. And I think too, the seeing our own face, when you're out networking in person, you're not actually seeing yourself unless you're standing in front of an area that has mirrors, but you're kind of seeing yourself. You're like, oh, my hair's popped up, and you know, all that's happening as well. So I'm worried about that, and I'm looking at Margot, and then I'm looking at Jennifer, and then, you know, and so there's actually a thing, if you want to look it up, it's continuous partial attention. And so it makes it difficult to make decisions. It makes it difficult to focus. And, you know, there's sort of this whole thing happening when we're in this digital piece. So one of the tips is to be aware of it, obviously, you know, get out of it if you can, walk away, put down your device, don't get off a Zoom call and pick up your phone and go from device to device. And the one that I always like is the 20-20-20 rule for eye strain. Every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So just get yourself off that device, right? And look to the distance. And I'm very fortunate in my home office. I can kind of look out towards the mountains outside Pasadena, and I'll just kind of look and gaze and just kind of, you know, keep that eye strain and try to avoid that. There's a couple things I just wanted to mention from my perspective.
Stu just mentioned that you really have to want to meet somebody in person right now. And it's true.
Yeah.
I actually have a mother in a senior's home. And I'm very careful about where I go and what I do, because I don't want to risk not being able to visit my mom. And it's true. Yeah. That and the yoga pants get pretty comfortable.
Excited. Okay, everyone.
All
Thanks
right.
so much. Thanks,
Thank
Sherry.
you.
Thanks, Carole. I thought that went really, really well. And we really did pull this together somewhat last minute. So I appreciate both of you, you know, doing this.
Yeah, for sure.
All good.
Awesome. Okay, close it out. All right. See ya.
Have a good day.
Bye.
See you
Have a
guys.
great day.